In 1964, President Lyndon B. Johnson signed the Civil Rights Act into law. But just blocks away, children were growing up in yards like this, under the literal shadow of the United States Capitol. The early 1960s saw massive mobilizations, with hundreds of thousands gathering at the National Mall to pressure the government into dismantling Jim Crow. But for working-class families in the inner city, striking down a racist law did not instantly generate wealth, dismantle redlining, or end police violence in their communities. Erasing segregation from the legal code removed a barrier, but it did not rewrite the power dynamics that governed life in America's backyards. This chart shows Washington, D.C.'s population by race. In the mid-20th century, rapid migration caused the gray line, the black population, to sharply cross the orange line. By 1957, this intersection made D.C. the first major American city with a black demographic majority. Yet, the people living there had no local voting rights. They were governed directly by a federal Congress filled with segregationists, denied a local government, and patrolled by a police force that remained 80% white. This environment demonstrated a specific lesson for activists. A demographic majority and federal desegregation laws mean very little if the community lacks the systemic power to govern its own daily life. In 1966, a new generation of organizers began to vocalize that need for control. Stokely Carmichael, chairman of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, began popularizing a specific demand: Black power. This represented a pivot away from the nonviolent, integration-focused campaigns led by figures like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Instead of seeking a seat at existing white-dominated institutions, these activists demanded the resources to build and lead their own. Because Washington, D.C. lacked a local government, it became a testing ground where this political theory could be implemented on a city-wide scale. The first pillar of this movement was self-determination, the requirement that a community control its own political and economic destiny. Local organizers launched the Free D.C. campaign, rallying residents to demand home rule, the right to a popularly elected local government. To fund this infrastructure, activists secured grants from the Federal War on Poverty. They used these dollars to hire neighborhood organizers and launch community programs, like this dance class at Southeast Neighborhood House, which served as hubs for local organizing. By utilizing federal money for community control, they stopped petitioning for inclusion and began constructing their own local power base. The second pillar involved an internal shift. Activists called it self-love, the deliberate rejection of white cultural validation and the embrace of Black identity. This psychological shift was heavily influenced by the teachings of Malcolm X, who mentored student activists at Howard University and emphasized the importance of Black history and heritage. That awakening changed the city's culture. Residents transitioned from the term Negro to Afro-American. Student activists established independent Black schools, and individuals increasingly wore natural hairstyles as a symbol of pride. Organizers believed that achieving this sense of cultural identity was the prerequisite before political power could be successfully wielded. By the late 1960s, years of grassroots organizing evolved into a push for formalized political representation. This pressure eventually forced the creation of local electoral offices in D.C. The same activists who organized the streets moved into the ballot box, winning seats in the newly established city government and transforming an oppressed majority into a governing one. This shift had a lasting impact. Between 1965 and 1970, the number of Black elected officials in the U.S. grew from just 72 to nearly 1,500, following the D.C. model of using a grassroots base to take institutional control. Today, the foundational ideas pioneered by those 1960s organizers continue to inform how modern social justice movements analyze and challenge systemic structures. The early civil rights movement showed that laws could be struck down. The Black Power movement showed that for that change to last, a community must build and lead the institutions that govern its life.